The Chicago Sky made a move that immediately sparked debate across the league, sending Angel Reese to the Atlanta Dream in exchange for 2 future first-round picks and a second-round swap. On paper, that return feels surprisingly light for a player with all-star appearances, a major rebounding record, and constant media attention. That is why so many people are asking the same question. If Reese was truly as valuable as her supporters claim, why was Chicago so willing to move on? The more this situation is discussed, the more it seems the answer goes deeper than box score numbers. It points toward questions about team impact, locker room tension, long-term fit, and the ongoing comparison tied to Caitlin Clark. Is Reese moving closer to the edge of the WNBA spotlight? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
Angel Reese traded to the Atlanta Dream, as you guys know. Jeff Pagliocca couldn't wait to send her packing. See ya. In fact, reports are coming out that Jeff Pagliocca was so excited about sending Angel Reese to Atlanta, he personally packed her bags.
Let's start with the most important question of all. If Angel Reese was really helping the Chicago Sky become a better team, why did the franchise finish 10-34 in 2025 and miss the playoffs for the second year in a row? When Reese entered the league in 2024, she arrived with huge attention. She came in as a national champion from LSU, with a massive fan following and enough visibility to make people believe Chicago had found its next franchise centerpiece. Her personal numbers gave that idea even more fuel. She stacked double-doubles, pulled down rebounds at a historic level, and earned 2 All-Star selections. From a distance, that sounds like a player any team should build around. But team success tells the real story. Chicago finished 13-27 in her first season, then dropped even further to 10-34 in her second. That is not a team building momentum. That is a team moving backward fast.
It's just a fact. She is, it's more than a fact. She is not good at layups. But I was looking at her stats. I jotted some down right here, and she shoots an abysmal 39% from the field. She shot below 50% on shots less than 5 feet away, which is bad. And even worse than that is that shots from 5 to 9 feet, 13%.
Now let's take a closer look at those rebounding numbers, because that is where the conversation becomes a lot more complicated. A noticeable share of Reese's rebounds came after her own missed shots. That is why critics online started calling them mebounds. She would miss a tough shot in traffic, grab the ball herself, and the stat sheet would reward her with another rebound. Technically it counts, but in practical basketball terms, it often meant the team was burning extra chances just to get back to the same place. Her shooting efficiency did not help either. She shot only 39 from the field in 2024, and even though that improved to roughly 42 in 2025, her three-point shooting stayed around 18 in both seasons. That made her almost no threat from outside. Defenders did not have to stretch the floor to guard her, and when that happens, the offense starts shrinking around everyone else.
Reese isn't even the biggest star in pretend basketball. She is getting outshined in a league where outside of Caitlin Clark, there are no stars. And you expect me to believe Angel Reese is the biggest star in basketball? What in the hell is going on?
There was also the issue of what she was not adding offensively. She was not consistently creating for teammates. There was not much advanced passing from the post, not many smart reads out of pressure, and not enough playmaking to lift the people around her. Chicago ended up giving significant offensive responsibility to a player who often needed repeated touches and extra possessions to produce what a more efficient option might produce much faster. And while that was happening in Chicago, Indiana was showing the league what genuine team-changing impact looks like. Caitlin Clark stepped in and transformed the Fever. She shattered 62 records in her rookie season and helped bring Indiana back to the playoffs for the first time in 9 years. Players like Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hull looked better because Clark made the game easier for everyone sharing the floor with her. That is the difference between empty production and real offensive leadership.
Angel Reese acted like a total and complete idiot, and it got called out for it. Over a take foul. Stop it. We all know what's behind.
Chicago was not a powerhouse before Reese arrived. That is true. But the key point is this: the sky did not improve with her either. And front offices do not get distracted by flashy stat lines when the team keeps losing. Reese's supporters often point to her individual production as proof that she was elite. But the truth is simple. Stats matter most when they lead to better outcomes. Chicago did not become more competitive with her on the court. They became worse in the standings and ended 2025 with one of the weakest records in the entire league. So before anyone even gets to locker room conflict, suspensions, or media drama, the basketball argument for keeping her was already under serious pressure.
We can't rely on Courtney to come back at that age that she's at, Reese said. I know she'll be a great asset for us, but we can't rely on that. We need someone probably a little younger with some experience, somebody who's been playing the game and is willing to compete for a championship and has done it before. Courtney Vandersloot, by the way, two-time WNBA champion, 5-time All-Star, 2-time All-WNBA first team, left the New York Liberty, a championship caliber team, to come help out the Chicago. Oh, damn. Oh, damn. Oh, dang. Oh, damn.
Some players are outspoken, misunderstood, and unfairly criticized. That version of the story does happen in sports. But Chicago's situation with Reese does not seem to fit that explanation. Too many incidents kept piling up for it to be dismissed as simple misunderstanding. Right from the opening game of the 2025 WNBA season in Indiana, Reese publicly claimed she had been the target of discrimination during the game. That is a major allegation. The league looked into it and found no evidence to support the claim. Instead of letting the game stay about basketball, the issue immediately became something much larger and louder. And from that point on, it felt like the season's tone had already been set.
Reese boldly and competitively called out the Chicago Sky for how they would move forward in terms of needing talent if they were going to compete, saying that she wanted to be a part of the organization and she wanted to compete at a high level. It didn't go over so well, Jay, in the public eye domain, at least as far as Chicago brass was concerned, and she actually ended up being suspended for a half.
Then came the comments about Courtney Vandersloot, and that moment likely carried a lot of weight inside the organization. Vandersloot tore her ACL and was in recovery when Reese spoke publicly about the team's future. Reese suggested Chicago could not rely on Vandersloot to return at her age and said the team needed someone younger, while still experienced enough to compete for a title. That was not a private opinion repeated by rumor. It was said openly, in public, while a veteran teammate was hurt and unable to contribute. And Vandersloot reportedly did not take it well. That matters because Vandersloot is not just another player. She is a respected veteran with status around the league. Publicly talking about her that way sent a strong message to the rest of the roster. It suggested Reese was comfortable criticizing teammates as soon as they no longer fit her idea of the team. That kind of comment does not disappear after a media session. It stays in the room.
Herself, after her sophomore season, refused to show up to her end of season press conference. Jeff Pagliocca wants no parts of Angel Reese. And she's out of there. Shout out to Bane. Free Cardoso. She is finally free. So they just wanted to get rid of her and didn't even try to get something in return.
And it was not only Vandersloot. Camila Cardoso, Reese's own front court teammate and the player Chicago now appears ready to build around, reportedly walked out on her at some point during the season. If that report is true, that is not a small disagreement. When the player next to you in the front court reaches that level of frustration, it suggests a deeper problem that goes far beyond ordinary team tension. Then in September 2025, Reese told the Chicago Tribune that the team needed better players, great players, and needed to stop settling for what it had done that season. At first glance, those comments may sound like competitive frustration. But publicly saying that while still sharing a locker room with those same teammates is not leadership. It reads more like public embarrassment directed inward.
Angel Reese is only going to be in Atlanta for 2 years. This year and next year until her rookie contract's up with. Want to know how I know? Because Atlanta's not going to offer her the max contract. Atlanta's not going to give her the super max. Because you don't give the 4th or 5th best player on your team the supermax.
The situation got even worse when Chicago suspended her for conduct detrimental to the team. That alone was serious enough. Then she picked up an automatic additional suspension after collecting her 8th technical foul of the season. After that, she did not return for the final 3 games, with the team citing a back injury. At around the same time, people online were circulating footage of Reese dancing and enjoying a trip to Las Vegas. Everyone can draw their own conclusion from that, but the timing only added more noise around an already unstable situation. And that is the key point. Teams do not usually hand out that kind of suspension over one isolated issue. A suspension like that usually comes after repeated internal problems, failed attempts to manage things quietly, and a front office deciding it has reached its limit. Meanwhile, Indiana was dealing with its own pressure and injuries, but the conversations around Caitlin Clark and her teammates sounded entirely different. Players around her talked about trust, chemistry, growth, and shared success. That contrast mattered.
Yeah, let me tell you something right now. Unless there are extenuating circumstances, and the circumstances have got to be major, teams do not trade superstar players because they're outspoken. Teams do not send away their cash cow because they're difficult to work.
Atlanta's front office presented this trade like it had just added a major missing piece. They described Reese as a dynamic talent and a perfect fit for their vision. That sounds good in a press release, but the actual basketball fit raises obvious concerns. The Dream already had Brittany Griner and Brianna Jones in the front court. Both are interior players. Both do their best work near the basket. Both prefer physical touches inside rather than stretching the floor. Jones was not some replaceable piece either. She averaged 12.8 points and 7.7 rebounds in 2025 and earned an All-Star selection. Now add Reese to that mix, a player who also operates near the paint and shot only around 18 from 3 in 2025, and suddenly Atlanta has 3 bigs all needing the same space.
Angel Reese did not request a trade from Chicago. The Chicago Sky said, "We just don't want to deal with the headache. We don't care. We don't want her here. She's been a locker room cancer from the jump. Quits the first year, quits the second year, fakes a back in my neck, my back, fakes a back injury, doesn't even finish her first season of Unrivaled, can't be bothered with her second season, so she just comes in late."
That is where the spacing issue becomes impossible to ignore. You cannot realistically play Griner, Jones, and Reese together for major stretches without shrinking the floor. All 3 want to work in or around the same areas, and none of them force defenders to respect the perimeter. Against any disciplined defense, the result is obvious. Pack the paint, close driving lanes, and dare Atlanta to win from outside. That is a real problem because Atlanta's offense depends heavily on guards like Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard having room to move. Gray finished 4th in MVP voting in 2025, and Howard continued playing at an all-star level. Those guards are at their best when the floor is open, when driving lanes are available, and when help defenders are forced to stay honest. Reese's game pulls everything inward and tightens the floor around them. That is why some Dream fans reacted with hesitation instead of celebration. They understand the concern. The player Atlanta added may not make life easier for its best perimeter scorers. She may do the opposite.
Many people are saying the Chicago Sky got fleeced. Let's run with that. Imagine you want to get rid of a player so bad that you're willing to get fleeced in the process. Imagine you want to get rid of a player you're so desperate to rid your team of this player. A player whose fan base had Isabel Harrison and Dana Evans crying at the end of the season press conference.
Then comes the culture question, which may be the most uncomfortable one of all. Atlanta watched Chicago spend 2 seasons dealing with Reese's drama. There were public criticisms of teammates, a league investigation into a discrimination claim that was not supported, reported tension with Cardoza, and an official team suspension for conduct detrimental to the group. And Atlanta still decided a change of scenery would solve everything. But history in professional sports shows that this is a risky gamble. Teams keep convincing themselves that a difficult personality will improve once the uniform changes. Sometimes that works, Most of the time, it does not, because behavior usually does not stay behind in the old building. It follows the player. Atlanta had already built a meaningful culture around Gray and Howard. Now it is taking in a player whose final official chapter in Chicago ended with a suspension. That is not a minor detail. That is the clearest paper trail a front office can leave before moving someone out.
You have a player of that caliber, when you have a once-in-a-lifetime or once-in-a-generation star, or even a regular superstar like Anthony Edwards or Jokic in Denver, you don't trade players of that caliber because you never know when you'll have the chance to find another one. You know who gets traded? Angel Reese.
So when you strip away the headlines, what exactly did Atlanta acquire? They brought in a player whose best statistical season came during her team's worst record. They added a frontcourt piece who creates major spacing concerns in a roster that already had interior size. And they took on a player whose locker room history raises serious questions. At the same time, Indiana is sitting in a much stronger position. Caitlin Clark is returning from injury with a full offseason to prepare. Aaliyah Boston remains the defensive anchor. Kelsey Mitchell is still thriving in the structure Clark helps create. And the Fever already proved in 2025 that this group can reach the playoffs and win meaningful games. They even eliminated Atlanta in the first round while Clark was dealing with a groin injury. That is not a team losing sleep over Angel Reese changing uniforms.